normally goes like, it says you're live. So I think we are more than live. Perfect. So yeah, so just to give you a quick little heads up. So at the top corner here, we'll see how many people are online. Here will give us the time. So I don't know, we'll see how long we go for, 30 minutes, an hour, depending on the energy, or if you want to get tired, you get over it, just be like, I'm done with it, and then we'll wrap it up. And then that's how many thumbs up that we get. Hopefully we'll get some thumbs up. And there aren't any. Oh wait, look, we've now got. So we got 4 people, 1 thumbs up already. We already got a thumbs up.
A few seconds.
So I think that is fantastic. Geez, we're already pushing up to 8. Okay, we were going to actually have like a pre-discussion I was expecting. So let's maybe just jump in with the proper introduction. So Cara, do you want to maybe introduce yourself to YouTube?
Of course. Hi, everyone. I'm Cara Geduld. I am a final year student at UCT studying actuarial science. I've had quite a turbulent journey over my past few years, and most of it has to do with my second year when I was sexually assaulted at the end of that year. So it was quite intense and it took a lot of time off.
Mm-hmm.
I had a year off in 2017 where I spent at home recovering and getting back on track, focusing on my mental health and trying to get back into the studies and focusing on how I would eventually go back to UCT. So I managed to do that. I went back to Actuary, which wasn't easy.
No, it's a tricky one to go back to.
Exactly. So even during my period at home, I was contemplating maybe doing a different degree, maybe something that was, I wouldn't say easier, but something that wouldn't take as much of my bandwidth. But what helped me stay in Actuary was my Backwork experience just before everything happened.
Okay.
I was in a section where people were truly motivated, and I was working with a marketing actuarial scientist or marketing actuary,
mm-hmm.
and he was phenomenal. He was truly an ally, I would say, in my journey with Actuary, and he helped me see what potential there was in actuarial science and what good could come of it. So I decided to continue with the path, and I've become far more involved at university afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how Fem Act came to be. This is how we ended up at this place.
Well, do you want to maybe talk a little bit more about Fem Act? So when did it start? What is its mission? And I know you have like some talks that happen and all these kind of things. So yeah, if you want to maybe just give us a little bit of a history and introduction to Fem Act.
Definitely. So how it happened was Shivani Ranchard, who used to be a lecturer at UCT. She was also the head of AXA at UCT. She was at the time a lecturer in about 2008, I think. And there used to be women events focused on AXA at the time. And there hadn't been an event in the past 11 years.
11 years?
11 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they definitely wanted to bring it back into the space. And last year was the first year that UCT actually had a house committee.
Okay.
So it was the first year that we had a specifically AXI-focused house committee. My friend Cara was a part of the committee, and she's the only person that stayed on in the committee and was still at UCT this year.
Okay.
So Shivani reached out to Cara and said, look, we really want to bring this up again. We want a woman-focused event, Women in AXI. So Cara came into my cubicle one day. I was studying in the library pre-COVID.
Mm-hmm.
She came in, knocked on my door, and she was like, Cara, are you keen on possibly being a part of Fem Act? Or no, sorry, there wasn't a name at the time. So there wasn't a name. She was just like, okay, read this message. It's a message from Shivani. It was speaking about glass ceilings, about problems that women face in the space,
mm-hmm.
sexuality, all these different problems that we have, and how we could go about empowering women in the process. And another thing was also the fact that we don't necessarily get enough exposure to women in AXI. We don't necessarily see ourselves in
mm-hmm.
the space. So it was more so educating people on what AXI is, if they aren't already in the field, giving students that are already in the field more idea of what they can do afterwards. Mm-hmm. So the opportunities that are out there, the different areas, because I mean, you're studying this degree, but you don't always know what you actually end up doing when you go into the
that's the thing.
world.
Did you know what actuarial science was before you started studying? Because I didn't.
Sure, I had no idea. Honestly, I had no idea. I searched in high school. I went on this hunt of what can I possibly do? What would match my interests and what I'm good at? And I researched Actuary, or someone actually told me, oh, Cara, you would be great at Actuary, you're good at maths. And I was like, what on earth is that? Like, what is that?
Yeah.
Started on my hunt, researching what Actuary is, and eventually I was like, okay, this sounds really cool. And I wanted to go more into the consulting space because I thought, okay, it would be more interactive with people, but also still the number crunching behind the scenes. So I thought it would work towards both of my interests. But still today, if you ask any of my family members, if you ask anyone what is Cara studying, what like no one knows. No one actually knows. You just know, okay, this is the title, but do you actually know what it is? So yeah, this is what we're here for. Like, I feel as though I've learned so much at university, but I don't always know how you can actually apply it in the real world.
Yes.
So Backwork experiences and interning, that's literally the only reason I actually know
what. Well, I want to talk to you about that because I didn't do any back work, and I think it was because holiday came and I was just so tired. I was like, I don't want to do anything regarding actuarial science. Like, I want to give my mind a break, play the latest PlayStation game. But I know a lot of people have done back work. They've asked me about, back work and some of the stuff. And I'm like, unfortunately, can't give them any advice because I didn't do it. So do you want to maybe talk about how did you find the back work? What was the back work that you did and who you'd recommend it to?
So with me, I was fortunate in that I have a bursary. So with the bursary, you are, I wouldn't say obligated to, but it's suggested that you do back work. So from my second year at university, the December of my second year was my first time getting involved in Backwork. And I would definitely recommend it because, like I said, in my journey, what kept me spin the theory, I wouldn't have been motivated enough to stick it through, especially after like life's challenges. So when life throws things at you, you almost want to opt out. Or I know at the time I was thinking, okay, how can I go into law? How can I switch over into chartered accounting or statistics? And I feel as though because I had that Backwork experience, it made me more aware of what lies ahead and kept me motivated to continue pushing. So I've actually had, this is my fourth Backwork experience. So I've had 3 Backwork terms that actually happened over the vacation period. Right now I'm interning while I'm studying. So that's like my 4th. And it truly is so fruitful. Like, you learn so much about the area. It's nice because you get a paycheck at the end of it as well, which is nice as a student because you don't always get that. And you get exposed to the different areas inside XI. So in one of my experiences, there was marketing. I didn't know about that beforehand. So I didn't know that you could become a marketing actuary. I just knew, okay, pricing, reserving, you know the norms, about finance, but Backwork exposed me to the other areas. Found out about healthcare now recently. So healthcare, working in that area, how do actuaries fit into that space? So in terms of how they can get more involved, at university, there's always like sessions that introduce you to different corporates. So in those sessions, try and apply. There's always emails. So I'm a person that actually loves reading emails.
You love reading emails, okay.
I love reading emails, and most times you'll actually get, during the year, you'll get emails that are like, okay, there's this Backwork opportunity. Obviously now it's a bit more difficult because COVID doesn't allow for that many, but most times you'll get opportunities in your emails. Just make sure that you read them, send your CV. Also, like, reaching out to people it's crazy what it can do for you. Like a simple LinkedIn message. I've gotten so many things right from LinkedIn messages.
So wait, are you on LinkedIn Premium so that you can message people without connecting? Or so you first wait for the connection?
So I feel as though most times when I go to like a Zoom call, or if I see someone talk at university or something of the sort, I end up linking with them after that event. So I'll have them on LinkedIn, and then maybe they'll share something and it's linked to another corporate. And then from that, you end up in a space where, now I can reach out to that person for advice. And it's quite like, at the end of the day, these are people. So I think LinkedIn is a more inclusive space. It allows you to just message someone and actually get a reply at the end of the day. And most times people are more than happy to help. Like, for instance, you were more than happy to help me today.
Well, yeah, that's how we connected, was over LinkedIn. And I mean, so what I like about this is you're basically saying social media is good for actuaries.
Definitely.
Well, speaking about that, should we see? I see we do have some questions. Oh, guys, MJ is slowly disappearing from the frame. That is coming from the one question. I don't know if we should put a little bit more back, or guys, I don't mind disappearing in the back. But yeah, let's see at the question. We've got nice hair. I don't know if that's. I think that's for me more than for you. Hey? I mean, look at this.
I see the growth.
Look at that beautiful hair there. Let's see, guys. Do you have any questions? Okay, there aren't. There's mainly just greetings. I also haven't had Backwork experience. So tell me from the Backwork experience. I mean, how do you manage your energy levels going from working? I mean, you're studying during the term, and then this is your holiday time to be recovering. Is Backwork really, really stressful, or is it more of a you're kind of just at the office, you're seeing what happens, and it's not too much of a brain drain?
So I feel in my experience, most of my Backwork times were after exams at the end of the year. So you'll have November, October exams, and then it'll close. And then I would usually give myself a few days. So I'd give myself maybe 3 days, and then I'll start the Wednesday if I finished on Friday. So I'll have the weekend, I'll have Monday, Tuesday, and I'll start the Wednesday. And then I'd have 4 weeks from then onwards. And my experiences haven't been too stressful, because the first few days, they are getting you used to the culture, they're getting you set up, your laptop, all of the logistics almost. And then the following week, you'll start working. And at the end of the day, like, they don't assume that you know everything. They know that you maybe haven't worked with Excel. They know that you maybe don't know what VBA is. Like, they are there to help you, because they know you're a student. You just come from the university world. So they want to get you into that so that you can get comfortable with the company and hopefully return. So they don't stress you. And what I've liked about my Backwork experiences is that it hasn't been one area of work. So I don't end up just working on Excel the whole time that I'm there. I'm also a person that like raises my hand for just anything. So if I hear something that interests me, I'll be like, can I also be a part of that? Like, you know? So after university, when I go into the space, it's almost something that interests me. I end up finding a part of the Backwork experience that is for me. So with my most recent one, I started out working on Excel docs, pricing, adjusting, trying to make it better for future models. And then I went into a meeting one day, and they were speaking about creating a video on what actuaries do in the department. And I was listening to this, and I'm like, that sounds so cool. Like, I'm so shocked that they're doing this. And they were speaking about creating a video that would accompany the presentation and behind the scenes. So almost like a funny gimmick of what actually goes on. So I was like, okay, like, can I make the presentation, or can I be a part of the video? And they are more than keen to let you, because at the end of the day, they also have things that they have to do. They have to finish a certain project by a certain date. So if the Backwork student is like, I know how to edit videos, you know? So it's that. So it kept my energy going. It kept me excited about the period. So it doesn't feel like, oh, I'm working for the next 4 weeks. It's like, okay, like, I'm getting to know the area. I am doing something that I like. And at the end of the day, it's a nice story to tell afterwards, and it keeps you motivated to continue studying. So I've definitely enjoyed my experience.
Because where do you see yourself going in actuarial science? Like, what is the area of specialty that maybe excites you, or you think to yourself, I want to maybe start my own discovery, or something like this? Like, what are you thinking at the moment?
So I definitely enjoy like the consulting, the marketing. So I would say I'm for product.
Okay.
But I also really enjoy the healthcare space. So I don't want to say this in a negative way, but like, I feel as though with life, for instance, it feels almost morbid and
Well, yeah, you're calculating when people are going to
exactly. So it feels like you almost take out that personal element of everything in that, and you like you'll speak about this person should die in like you estimate this person to die within, and you speak about these things so casually. You speak about countries that, their mortality rate, it becomes so casual. Whereas healthcare, like it still has that negative part of it, but it's optimistic almost.
Yes, you're trying to help make people better.
Exactly. So I like that about it. And I like that there's so many opportunities where you could lean towards. So I feel as though in Actuary, I definitely want to learn as much as I can first, so that I can maybe solve certain issues that we face in South Africa, because our context is so different to others. Like this topic, exactly, like women in South Africa, GBV, it's insane. So if Actuary can somehow lend itself to solve certain problems, that is something I would like to go into. So yeah, I'd like to find out ways that I possibly can. And I think the best way is towards the healthcare space.
So it's interesting. I don't talk that much about healthcare on my channel because I'm a little bit squeamish. I remember we were talking about, in the one actuarial science lecture, we were talking about cardio bypass surgery. And I actually almost fainted. I had to leave the classroom because he was drawing this diagram on the board of like these arteries, and I was just like, even though I'm getting a little bit freaked out, like, I just can't do medical stuff. So it's good that people are hearing that there's the help. Because I think if they just watch my channel, they will be like, what? Actuaries can work in the health? I just don't talk about it at all. I do see we have got a few questions. Although, is people just talking to each other? I think on the, I think it's mainly, there haven't been any, guys, are there any questions? I see there's a lot of talk in the comments here, but it's mainly just like, it's about my amazing hair. No, I think they're talking about your hair.
Thank you. Shem, I think what I like about Fem Act, so we've spoken about the origins of Fem Act and how it came to be, but it's honestly been such an amazing platform. So we have four sessions. We've already had 2, and we have the next one coming up this coming Wednesday, and then another one the week following. So the first one was more so like making decisions, and we had 3 women, all in the actuarial space, all in very different areas, different stages of their lives, and speaking about their experiences in AXI. And how like you have to make decisions in actuarial science, because there's so many decisions that you have to make, especially as a woman of color. Most of the speakers were. So it feels as though within a South African context, you don't always have resources at your disposal.
Yes.
So you can't always have a Google search and be like, okay, I am a mother studying actuarial science, working full time. How can I manage all of this? You can't always get the same answer. You'll get maybe bloggers speak about something, but it doesn't relate to your context. So I think that was also what Fem Act was meant to do, bring in the South African context and give women or girls, whoever's watching, people that they can reach out to and speak to, or get advice from, or hear their stories and know almost how they navigated in their area. So for instance, we had Nabila Kolia, who is the chairperson of the Actuarial Women's Society. It's a subset of the SABA, and she spoke very beautifully. And afterwards, one of my first years, Nashita, she asked, can she maybe have Nabila's number? Because she just wanted to ask like advice, because she also relates to her, and you want that person that you can look up to and see that they've come a similar route to what you plan on, or they want to reach towards that. And I think that that's what this platform is doing. It's giving you more accessible people that you wouldn't have known of otherwise, because it's not like you see an actuary on the news just randomly. COVID has made them more accessible, but you don't always have these people. So I think that's what we also trying to do.
Are the sessions recorded?
Yes, they are.
And so can people access them? And where can they access them?
So the first session was recorded without a glitch, but then the second session had a bit of a network issue. So we have like most of the recording, but then a part of it is out. The next 2 sessions, I'm sure there won't be any glitches. We'll make sure that everything's sorted, but they can just reach out to me. I have access to all the loadings. I put them all in one place, so in a Google Drive, as opposed to sending you the link, typing in the password. So if you reach out to me,
you LinkedIn invitations at the end of this, which is great. Why haven't you put them on YouTube? Why haven't you made a YouTube channel?
That is so true.
Hey, what? Yeah, why?
Funny story. I actually tried to make a YouTube channel back in the day.
And what happened?
It was so much effort to edit. I don't know how you did all of this, honestly. Like I had maybe 2 or 3 videos, and it got to exam season. I was like, I can't. Like, how am I supposed to edit this? I went to New York the 1 year, so I took really good videos. I enjoyed the video taking. I was all blogger-like. And then when it came to editing it, I was just like,
you're like, I'm over this.
Yeah, exams are coming up. There's like 100 videos. I must turn it into one. There's no way.
Yeah. Well, that's what we were saying a little bit earlier, because we were deciding, should this be a YouTube live or just like a podcast? And one of the advantages of YouTube live is not having to do the editing afterwards. Of course, you do have the awkwardness of me like disappearing from the screen, but so you don't necessarily get everything perfect. But yeah, I mean, you've now got all this content. I would put it, because this is the thing about Google Drive, which I'm not sure if you're aware of. Because I'm making some videos for ASA and stuff like that, and we're trying to find a way to put them. And they don't want to put them on YouTube because they're paid content and all that. And so I had them in a Google Drive, giving them to students, but I was reading the terms and conditions. If too many people click on your Google Drive link, YouTube can ban your email account. So if you do put it on a drive, don't put it on like for all your emails, because there is that potential thing.
Sure.
So I'd recommend YouTube. I mean, YouTube is fun. And then, people already are on YouTube, so they can find the links. But talk to me more about, the first session was about decision making. Okay. The second session, I actually know some of the people that were in it, because just on various WhatsApp groups. So I'm interested, what happened? What happened on that one?
I won't lie to you. The second session was my favorite.
Okay. This is the one that there was the glitch, and we don't have all of it.
We have an hour and about 20 minutes. So we must have 40 minutes. Still good content. The reason why it's my favorite is because it's a topic that's not mostly discussed.
Okay.
So gender and sexuality. Now, putting that on top of that, like gender and sexuality in actuarial science. So it's quite a tense topic. And what made it very interesting was that we had 3 different women, different stages of their lives, and also different experiences. And what I really liked was the honesty that came from the discussion. And you have someone that maybe has lived experiences from different issues that they face because of their gender or sexuality, whereas you have someone that doesn't really understand the terms, doesn't really understand what it means. So, for example, we had Tato Pule, who is a transgender woman, and she spoke on her lived experiences. She spoke on different things that she went through in the corporate world. And for instance, if I were to use an example that she stated, was going into a space and you almost get identified by what your birth certificate says or what your ID says. And that can be a very uncomfortable situation, because at the end of the day, you are a woman and you want to be addressed as such. Whereas some managers are like, okay, but this is the form that I have and this is what the form says. So it makes it very uncomfortable. So she spoke about that. She gave us more of the terminology that we should be using. And then you have someone on the other end, which was memory, that didn't completely understand everything in the beginning. So she made quite a funny example about how at some point people were like, okay, so what is your pronoun? And she was like, what is a pronoun? Like, what are you talking about? Because it's not something that she has had to experience. She has always been a woman, and she has always been a Black woman, and she identifies as such. She never had to specifically, okay, I am Miss, I am the, like, it was always what was assigned to her at birth almost was what she went with. So I like that honest conversation, and she would use certain examples of where she didn't understand, and she would freely ask, and you have everyone contributing in that space from their own experiences and their own examples. And we had like a conversation on allyship, which I think is so important, because as women in the space, sometimes you do need men as allies in your corner. Because if you look at the numbers in actuarial science, like the vast majority are men, and at the top, the vast majority are men. So how do women reach towards the top if they don't have these people that they can look up to, or people that they could ask advice from? So most times we do need to ask advice or ask for allyship of men. We ask for doors to open for us. We send a message on LinkedIn and we get MJ to, help advertise a certain program. So we do need men in our corners, and we had Pam speaking about this allyship and what it has to do with women in AXA and how people could help in the space. So it definitely was a very fruitful conversation and very informative, because at the end of the day, like, we are almost taught from the beginning that gender and sex, they are synonyms. When you were growing up, you knew them, okay, gender and sex means the same thing, girl, boy, that's what you know. Whereas they aren't, and to treat them as the same thing, it almost takes away from another person's experiences. So yeah, it's something that we also had to tackle in terms of like our wording and how we send out our posters. Do we use woman or do we use female? And sometimes you are excluding certain people when you use female, for instance. So just making sure of your wording and how you speak to your audience, how you don't want to, at the end of the day, exclude certain people from the conversation, because we want this to be a platform where anyone can benefit from it. So,
well, you know what? It's so good to just have that awareness. I mean, I was very fortunate at Wits where our lecturer introduced us a little bit to, I think it's Judith Butler. She wrote a book called Gender Troubles. And he spoke about how, sexuality is not necessarily binary. It's not like, you're either hetero or you're homosexual, but we're kind of like on the spectrum. And also, breaking that linkage between, let's say, gender and sexuality as two different concepts rather than having them as the same. So we were fortunate, I mean, to hear that. I mean, I remember just as being a male, the first time you hear that, there's a little bit of a defense. It's kind of like, it's almost like there's doubts has now been introduced, and that irritates you. Like, no, but I've always looked at the world like this. There's two genders, or there's two this. And then it takes time. Like I said, the awareness is such a great thing, because you need these concepts you need to think about them. It's not like, oh, you hear it for the first time and then people are just convinced or converted straight away. They need to hear them, think about it, hear it, think about it, hear it. And so that awareness is such an important aspect. And I mean, I look at my YouTube channel and I'm well aware of the statistics that the majority are men. You can go on to and I think it ranges sometimes 80% of my subscribers are men. Sometimes it will go down to 75. And even like when I was at Wits, there weren't that many women in my lecture classes. And there were times when I would go in and write an exam, particularly the ones like enterprise risk management, which is the specialist subject. I remember going in and being shocked at 1 out of the 10 people who were writing, no ladies at all, and 9 were white males. And it's such a, because you're like, wait, I was writing the other exam, the lower one, and it was like the entry one, and it was like a more better share of the demographics. And then you come to the top and you're like, okay, wait, what's going on? So it's so important that we can become, I think awareness is always the first step, and then it's identifying where exactly. And then we can start managing it and then monitoring it. It's kind of like we can almost use the actuarial control cycle with something like this. So what would you say is, or what is going to be the conversation for the next course or the next talk?
So the next talk on Wednesday is about seeking balance.
Okay.
And I'm really looking forward to it, because it's definitely something I need to try and get to myself now. Because now it's a thing of, okay, balancing working, balancing studying, and then balancing your own life. So exercising, keeping well, and that sort of thing. What I really like about the title and the discussion that we had with the speakers beforehand was the concept of seeking balance as opposed to having balance, because balance isn't something that you just get. It's not a final destination. It's constantly a journey. It's a journey towards getting there. And I don't think at any point like you can say I'm completely balanced, all of my boxes are ticked. And that was the feeling we were getting from most of the speakers. Whereas when we invited the speakers, like you think, okay, no, this lady is amazing. She has her ducks in a row. We have amazing speakers. So you would imagine, okay, she can tick all those boxes. But when we had this conversation with them beforehand, they were like, like it's actually a funny topic because they'll maybe also get LinkedIn requests. How are you able to maintain all of this? How are you able to juggle all of this and still keep your life afloat? And sometimes they don't get to that balance. So it's a continuous journey of trying to get there. So I like that about our speakers, and that they can be relatable in that way. And it's some phenomenal speakers. So we have Roseanne, who is a past president of ASA. We have Machela. We have Frances, who is now a consultant at Bain. So she decided to go away from the Actuary route. So she studied Actuary and then afterwards decided, okay, I'm going into consulting. And she's a good example of balance, keeping her life. She's always active. She was actually my tutor at university. So that's the connection. And I always saw her at the gym. So it was just like, okay, wow, you in final year Actuary and you still managing to find time to, okay. And then we have from the Adrian Gore recipient from last year, fellowship recipient, Quizana. So Quizana, Black woman, I think she's the first person to win the Adrian Gore fellowship. Okay. So she's in her first year at Discovery now, and yeah, I think that all of them can teach you something. Quizana obviously now being thrown almost into the deep end. Your first year of working is now also this year, 2020. So
that is, I mean, if that's not stressful enough.
Exactly. And then we also have Machela she did an MBA overseas. She is in London, working in London. So she's also quite a phenomenal person. So I think that like all of our speakers they are the woman that you look up to.
Yes.
Especially in AXA, like, okay, this is where I want to get to one day. So I think that they very representative of the pool in South Africa, and they are people that you can learn from their experiences. I don't think any of them have straightforward stories. And yeah, they are getting that balance. They will show you a good way of how to maintain different areas of your life. But at the same time, they can relate to the struggles that we have. So I'm really looking forward to Wednesday session.
Okay, fantastic. Because I mean, I know Rosanna because she was a lecturer at Wits.
Yes.
And then it was president. Hey? Yes. And now, I don't know, I think I got an email, but you being the email lover, you might be able to confirm this. Is it true that she's running unopposed for the International Actuarial Association as president for that?
Yes. So that's also in the document that I typed out, so that's why I know that. Okay. So yes, in the statement that we wrote, it also said that...
Will she be the first woman to take that position?
I think so. I'm not 100% sure, but that would be amazing.
So, because, I mean, it's always weird, like, I mean, early on in my channel, I would always make jokes like about the Illuminati and stuff like this, like, these silly conspiracy theories of who controls the world. But there is this organization called the Joint Forum, which oversees regulation of banking, insurance, and securities. And then on the insurance one, you have then the International Actuarial Association, which then Actuarial Society of South Africa falls under, which then we kind of fall under. So you always have to make the joke, actuaries, we do control the world because we're part of this big giant thing that does it. But it's exciting because she's climbing those ranks, and then that's kind of where some of the big decisions get made. So it is a fantastic thing. Not only that it's South African, but also,
And she's a woman.
And we got a woman, coming up in
No,
those
that
ranks.
is amazing. I was typing it out and it said presidential nominee of the IAI.
Yeah, IAA. Yeah.
Yeah,
International
IAA.
Actuarial Association.
Association.
It's a weird acronym. It's not like ASA, which just
Yeah.
rolls off, or the IFOA. It's like the
So true.
IAA.
So we're gonna have her on Wednesday. So that's quite exciting.
Okay, awesome. And then I might ask you about the fourth one. I just want to see if there's any questions. What are entrepreneurship opportunities for actuaries? Is Fem Act in Johannesburg too? Let's maybe talk about that one. Because it's COVID, all of these things happening virtually.
Yes. So everything is online. It's on a Zoom webinar.
Webinar.
Yes.
So even people throughout the rest of Africa, throughout the rest of the world can join these.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, I'll get the links and put it in the description to this one, and also put it on Facebook, LinkedIn, all of that. Let me see the other questions. I'm in insurance sales, becoming an actuary. What would be a good starting point? I mean, it's interesting, insurance sales. It's like, I remember we once got told this story. I'm deviating a little bit, but it was about how the salesman actually made more money than the actuaries because he was getting a fee from the brokerage, and because he was selling to just so many people, because he was so good, that the salesman's salary was bypassing the actuarial salary. So I don't know if you want to leave. I mean, if you're a good salesman, but no, I mean, the best way to start joining actuarial science is to find the society in your country. And I mean, this is an exciting thing that is happening in Africa. I mean, one of the other people on the WhatsApp group, Angola is now forming their own actuarial society.
Oh, wow.
They're developing their own life table that's relevant to their nation and all these kind of things. So, which is progress. It really, and I think it's important for each country to have its own actuarial association, because we can also then influence government. We can influence politics. If we can come and say, like I said with COVID, we can say statistically, this is how health is going to change, and this, with these models, and we can come as a united front. Of course, which isn't happening in South Africa. We've got two different views on it, but having that organization to talk to government can actually help them, because I think even like when it comes to pensions, I mean, having actuaries at that political level can be such a benefit.
I think what's cool is that you mentioned, like, find the society in your country, because like a lot of people, or I think in South African context, you assume that you would need to first get your degree in AXI, which isn't the case. Like, if you have a degree in statistics, in economics, in maths, you can still become an actuary. You can still write your boards, you can still do the journey. Whereas for me, I honestly thought that, okay, I had to get my degree in AXA in order to get there. Whereas it would have probably been more sensible to me to stay at home first, study there. I would have probably had my degree already. I could have then, okay, now I have my degree, I can still venture into AXA by forming a part of ASA, start writing the exams, studying on my own. And I think that's almost something that we don't know, or something that we skip over, because it's not something that's spoken about enough. I mean, not many people know what actuaries are, let alone how to become one. So,
and I mean, this is one of the exciting things about COVID. I know I'm using the word exciting and COVID in the same sense. People are probably like, what? Where's the heck of this? But as an actuary, you always want to kind of look at the upside risks as well. And what's nice about COVID is that it's kind of normalized online education, online exams and online delivery. Yes, they're not perfect, and there's still a lot of room that we need to improve. But there's almost this vision that if we can create all of this education online and test it also online as well, then in a weird way, we could maybe do away with the need for a university for someone to become an actuary. Now, of course, that's a controversial thing to say, and maybe it was 20 years away, but with COVID, maybe it's now only 5 years away. But what's nice about having an online platform and online testing is then we can make it accessible to the whole of Africa. We don't, because South Africa, we're very privileged to have so many universities that have so many awesome facilities, whereas some countries maybe have just one or two, or people in rural places can't access it. If you can make it online and governments provide internet access to everyone, we could start seeing an influx of actuaries popping through.
Definitely.
And I'm always of the view more actuaries are better actuaries. You know, so the more of us out there, the more we can kind of like get to grasp of this like future and make sure that we make the right decisions now.
So for instance, like with me, I'm from Port Elizabeth.
You're from PE?
Yes, I'm from
Okay.
PE. So in PE, the university doesn't offer Actuary. So for me, it was either leave home or study something else. And I was set on Actuary. As soon as I found out what it was and did all my research, I was set on Actuary. So I had to leave. I didn't know that I could have studied statistics or economics or maths and, select my majors so that it would be optimal. So had there been an opportunity like that, like an online learning or essay exams in PE, broaden it out, or if I just had someone that could have given me advice on different ways to go about it, I would have probably maybe stayed at home. You have the safety net, although like you do learn a lot in the process of leaving home. I've definitely grown, become so independent living in Cape Town, living alone, versus if I were to stay at home and study there. But it would have been a lot easier, and I think a lot more people would end up becoming actuaries if they could. Because I mean, you have people that maybe didn't get the most amazing marks in high school, but sometimes you don't actually need the most amazing marks in high school to end up in Actuary. Because myself, I think I did really well in high school. I came to university, and then people that did not as well as me in high school ended up doing so well at university. So at the end of the day, like, it's the hard work, I think, a lot more than the intelligence. So you can be very smart, but if you don't have that hard work and determination to stick through, you might not end up becoming an actuary at the end of the day. So had some of my colleagues that maybe don't have access to bursaries, or they maybe couldn't afford to move to a different city, but they maybe found Actuary, also researching it, they're like, okay, no, this is actually for me. I think this would be quite an interesting thing to go into, because sometimes it's like your languages that hold you back. So maybe English and Afrikaans is the reason why your average isn't that high. And then your maths is amazing, maybe your accounting is amazing, but you don't end up here because your average wasn't amazing. So now you don't end up with a bursary or scholarship or an opportunity to study in a different city. If more people knew that, okay, you can still study at home, get this degree, and you can still pursue Actuary afterwards. You can study your postgraduate diploma at one of the universities and get to Actuary at the end of the day. Sometimes you end up overtaking the people that came first in the grade or second in the grade, and you end up there and you reach your goal. But we don't all know of the avenues that there are to get there. So yeah, I think it all comes with information. And
well, you say that it was Rosanna's daughter. I remember she was in my year, but she didn't take actuarial science straight away. It was quite weird. So we did, I think it was stats together, we did ecos together, we did accounting together, but she wasn't doing actuarial science, the subject. And I remember being like, this is strange. Why isn't she doing this? She's now become a fellow actuary before a lot of my friends. And what happened was she was like, you know what? I'm going to pace myself better. Why throw all these subjects on first year and get taken up by the needs? I mean, I was crying sometimes in first year. I was like, I don't know how to do this stuff. Where she was a lot more chill, because she had this mindset of saying, you know what, instead of trying to rush, and that's another thing that we have, I think is a bit of a poisonous mindset, is like, we have to get the degree within so many years. It's almost like there's this rush where, you know what, there's nothing wrong with taking a year off, a gap in between, maybe stretching your degree over a longer period. She paced herself, and like I said, she's now a fellow actuary. And she kind of said, you know what, I'm not going to do AXA in the first year. She did it in her second year when she was doing maths too, and all those kind of things. And it was just a little bit,
So she built her own degree.
She built her own little degree.
And what I like about that is sometimes you can end up choosing subjects that you wouldn't have taken on the strict Actuary path. So sometimes you end up with things that fascinate you, and it almost builds you as a person as well. because you're not just focused on, okay, I need to qualify within 3 years, I need to get the Actuary degree. You are choosing things that interest you and that end up helping at the end of the day, because now you can speak about, okay, no, I did a course in philanthropy, I did sociology in second year, you know. Maybe that's a bit like off topic, but like you'll end up with a more varied degree to what the normal Actuary student will be. So you have a different story. But I really like that, because like with my degree, I feel as though I also almost built my degree. With my year that I took off, I was able to almost move certain subjects around and do them at my pace, as opposed to the set time.
Yes.
And although at first it can be difficult, so for instance, like when I had to go back to university, I was in a class with people much younger than me, or not much younger than me, and you were very aware of it. You were aware that your classmates have moved on, they're about to graduate. You know about that, and you're sitting in class with students that are younger than you, and you're just like, oh, like I could have been done. Like it can be demotivating, but at the end of the day, like what is 1 year of your life? What is 2 years of your life?
Yeah.
You know, for some it's more difficult, because obviously like it's another year of paying for your fees.
Yes,
it's another
not working and getting
yes,
that income.
yes.
And yeah.
But at the end of the day, like if you have these hurdles in life, they are there, and sometimes they can work to your benefit. So for me, in the extra time that I have, because I had less courses, I was able to get more involved in extracurriculars. So I was able to tutor. I don't think I would have been able to tutor had I had a full course load. And that's something that I really needed in my life, because at high school, I was involved in so many different things, and it made sure that I was very committed in the things that I was involved in.
Yes.
So I was playing hockey, I was in all cultural societies, like I was very involved. And then when I came to university, it was almost just like, stop, I'm just going to study, I'm going to pass, I'm going to chow course. Like that was the thought process. And that didn't happen, because you came from being this well-rounded person to, I'm just going to study, and you get almost
really destabilizing.
Yeah. So it's a different person. So when I eventually got to the point where I started tutoring, I started doing extracurriculars, I started exercising again, started doing marathons. Like it was, I need to be focused in all these different areas, so I need to make time for everything. And you end up doing a better job at the end of the day. Like I've seen my marks go drastically up from where they were in first year, when I had so much time for studying, you know? So also being like true to who you are and what keeps your blood pumping has been very useful in my experience.
Okay. No, fantastic. I'm going to check if we've got any more questions, and then I want to ask about session 4 that is coming up. I want to see. We got some other questions that aren't on the topic, which I'll maybe address in other videos, just so we don't take up too much time. There was one here by Times22 admin. What is Fem Act's missions and goals? I know we mentioned that at the beginning of the video, but I see we are 48 minutes in. So maybe for the people who've just joined us, do you want to maybe give a very quick take how much time you need, talk about Fem Act's missions and goals, and then talk to us about what's happening the following week. So the next week is about seeking balance. And I always remember there's that meme that says, good marks, sleep, and a social life. It's like, pick two. So that's going to be quite a fun discussion. So yeah, talk about Fem Act, and then what is going to be that final discussion that you guys are going to have. And when's that? That is the following week.
Yes,
Okay,
on
cool.
the 9th. On the 9th of September.
9th of September. Yeah, perfect.
So I would say Fem Act's goal is to increase the awareness of women in actuarial science, to increase the understanding of what we do in the space, and also representation, because women are barely represented in the actuarial space. So this platform it brings women that we would like you to see, and the stories that we would like you to hear, and makes them accessible to younger women also venturing in the same path. So for women that have questions that, okay, how do I balance my life with, or who I am, my hobbies, my interests, how do I balance with me striving towards wanting to become an actuary, become qualified, get my fellowship? Like, how do you make these people more accessible, their lived experiences? And a lot of them are so relatable, so inspiring, and you can learn from them in the process. So I would say that Fem Act's mission is to bring about that accessibility, that awareness, and to empower women at the end of the day. And that's why we decided on Women's Month in South Africa. And I mean, it's actually just so perfect that we happen to be closing this on the last day of Women's Month, or to be having this discussion on this day. So definitely women empowerment and making people more aware of the actuarial profession, and try and bring the faces. We want the faces to be seen. We want women in AXI to be seen and heard.
Okay, because I mean, it's interesting. Like while you've been saying, I mean, I'm even just thinking about like actuarial science, like the products that I would learn about. It would be about, let's say, a dual life annuity. It's like, oh, the man who's working and then is to take care of the lady, if or the wife if something happens to him, and he's the lead life, and then she's the joint life that's added on top of it.
That's so true.
And I mean, it was always a discussion that we had, because I remember, South Africa, we're a little bit behind progression compared to, let's say, a country like Sweden, which is very far up ahead. And they had this thing about how you couldn't discriminate based on gender, when it came to insurance products. And it was always a discussion that we had in the classroom, because, I mean, those actuarial life tables we get are split by, the men and the women, although in this case, the women live longer than men, so it's kind of like a little bit like reverse sex. So like, why mortality? Why do you want to kill me? So it's interesting that gender and sexuality is actually like it's embedded in actuarial science.
Our assumptions.
And that's why I think it is important that we do have this transformation, that we do have a better diversity and representation, so that even better actuarial products can be made. Because I mean, especially in like society today, there are a lot of, let's say, single moms. Your traditional actuarial product, kind of like, it's almost like that wasn't designed. It was designed for, a family structure. And it's like, okay, this is something that is against, let's say, the Western norm. It's like, what can that person purchase? So, and I think the more women that we get in these positions and these power that can relate to the policy holder and say, hey, actually, we need a product like this. And because at the end of the day, that's what actuaries, we're here to help the policyholders. Yes, we want the insurer to make money so that they provide capital, but we also have that obligation to the policyholders to give them what they need. And there is only so much that a man can know about, this world.
Definitely.
So having it, I think it's good for the industry as a whole. So yeah, just it's weird. It's just something that I was kind of like thinking that was popping up. But let's talk. I know we are at 53 minutes, and I don't know if you want to maybe end at an hour. Mario last time didn't want to end. Like it was coming too close to the hour, and I was like, Mario, let's cut it. And he's like, no, we're going to keep going. It's like we're going a whole hour and a half into the last live video, which we can do. It's weird. I've got like a very low stamina when it comes to mental energy, but we can push forward. But in case you do want to maybe wrap things up, let's talk about what's happening on the 9th of September.
Yes.
Okay, so who are the speakers? What is the topic? Why should people tune in and listen?
Okay, so it's actually funny that you led with like women and how men can't always make assumptions about women until women can speak up and say, okay, this is the issue that I have, because that's almost exactly what this session is about. Yeah. So
people are going to be like, it was steak. He knew what it was, and now he led with that. Okay.
So the fourth session is called Leaning In. So initially when I heard this, I was like, I have no idea what this means. And it was based on a book, Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg.
Okay.
So I hadn't read the book before, but I started reading it because of the sessions. And it's basically like, I wouldn't say the problems that women face, but the barriers that women face in Actuary and in the corporate world, because it wasn't designed for us. The corporate world was designed for a white man, you know? So certain issues that we face, for instance, like breastfeeding, it's something that a woman might need to do. You might have to go into a room, pump, and then go out in time for your next meeting. Pregnancy, like a woman might be pregnant now, her car is parked 3 floors under. She needs accessibility. She needs to be able to get to the office that she needs to get to. I actually had an experience last year where I was at Backwork and I got my period while I was at Backwork. So I started menstruating and I was wearing a white pants. I was wearing a white pants and I was very aware of this blood spot on my pants. And afterwards, I was looking around. I was like, who can I ask? Who can I get advice from on what to do? And there was 2 women in the team, and we were like a team of 20, but there was 2 women there that day. And I was like, okay, who do I ask? The one is like the head actuary and another is like a senior actuary. So I was like, okay, just ask who's closest to you. So I leaned back and I'm like, I need some help, fluff, whisper. Whereas it shouldn't be something that should be whispered about. Like I should be comfortable to ask the man next to me, So I asked her, what can I do? So she took me to the disabled bathroom, which was a few floors down. Went there and I spent the next few minutes trying to clean this with hand sanitizer and water, and then under this the blower?
Oh, yes.
I can't get the word. And trying to dry my pants, and I needed to be in the disabled bathroom so that it would dry in time. So that's just an example of certain issues or barriers that women would face in the working world that men won't. So this is what the discussion is about. Obviously, that those are just 3 examples, but there's so many barriers in place. For example, women don't necessarily have the same opportunities that men have. So for instance, men might feel more comfortable to be like, okay, let's go for a golf game after this and we'll chat about the numbers, and they won't always invite the woman, or examples like that. Spaces where women are excluded, not necessarily intentionally, but it just so happens to be the culture, and that's the way forward. So we have brilliant speakers. One of my favorites, she's my mentor, Margaret Carey. She's been in the field for many years. She's now retired, but she still works as a non-executive member at one of the firms. And she speaks about her experiences from when she was starting out. So she was one of the first. She graduated at a very young age, and she started working in the field, and she found Actuary. She found it very interesting. So she's like, okay, I want to qualify. And at the time, there was only 1 qualified woman in Actuary at the time, if I'm not mistaken. And so she's experienced quite a lot over her years. She also spoke about how at some stage, the men in the room would assume, if she were going into board meetings, they would assume that she was there to sort out the tea.
Oh, geez.
So a wealth of experience. We have one of the ladies, and your name's Anita, I might be mistaking it, I'm so sorry if I am, that is not actually an Actuary, but she is an organizational psychologist. So she is at UCT. Her interest is women in the field and different barriers that they face. So her research interest is this area. So she has a wealth of knowledge on this topic. And then we have Cara, who is a business leader. She was in Actuary, went over into the corporate world, and she's making waves. So they definitely have amazing experiences to feed off of fruitful examples, so many good examples of how it fit into their own lives and different barriers that were in their place, and how to reach either for the top, or sometimes just sit back and say, actually, I can choose if I want to become the CEO, or if I actually just want to lay back for a while. And you have that choice. You can say, okay, this isn't my session, this isn't my time. Right now, I want to focus maybe on a family. You don't have to focus on a family. You can focus on your hobbies. You can focus on something else, and you can just say, okay, I'll take the downgrade for now, or I'll take the demotion, and I'll come back in a few years, and maybe then. So yeah, that's what the 4th session is about.
Okay. It reminds me of this documentary I watched it was about Japan. So I don't know, probably there's some similarities here in South Africa and elsewhere in the world. But they're talking about, should there be, should we put more women in the boardrooms and all this type of stuff? And they said the reason why they have to put it in, like not just, like almost have like a quota system, is because let's say an organization just has men. They develop a culture of saying, after work, let's just go really to the extreme. We all go to a strip club. Let's just say, for example, there's an organization, they're mainly men, they all go to the strip club after work for drinks and for discussions and strategic meetings, because at work they're so busy doing anything else. If you only have, let's say, one woman come in or two, that's not enough to disrupt that strip club culture. They're still going to go to the strip club. They're still going to have those meetings, and those decisions are going to be made without them. There's still going to be that alienation. So you almost need, and this is where sociology is quite a fun subject, because they can study how many do you need to introduce into a group before that group culture changes. Is it 10%? Is it 30%? Because funnily enough, it's not 50%. It doesn't have to be necessarily 50 for that culture to have a switch. They show there's like a tipping point. And so if you can just get that tipping point, because you can imagine, let's say it's a team of 10 and there's 7 guys in the group, and they go to the strip club, and one guy says, okay, let's have our strategic meeting. There'll be 1 or 2 guys who'll be like, no, but we're missing 3 key members. Let's maybe not do it. But if there's only 1, they might be like, oh, people sometimes are sick. We can get it. We've got a quorum or whatever. So I think this is what Japan has recognized. Japan, again, another very modern society, something that we can maybe learn from. And they kind of seeing that, we need to break that, because it's almost, and this is, I think, what's difficult for the men to understand, is because women will come and say, this is a systemic problem, and it's sometimes referred to like the patriarchy and stuff like that. And then you'll have men who will be like, well, where is it? Put your finger on it. Oh, but there's a woman CEO over there. And, they try and play that game of like, where can you see it? Because it is something that's happening more, like I say, it's that strip club, like I said, it's an extreme example, but it's that boys club that you're going out on Friday night. Nowhere in the company code does it say, if you work at this company, that's where the board meetings happen. It hasn't been embedded in the code of ethics, what code of ethics would say strip club. But that's almost become like a culture of the work environment. And that's where that toxic masculinity can sometimes breed. Well, specifically, you can imagine a strip club, that's probably where it started. So it's important that, and like I said, and one of the reasons why we're doing this whole YouTube video is to raise awareness, because like I said, being as a man, it is this journey, because you kind of grow up. I went to an all-boys school, so I was always oblivious to what was happening out there, because it was always like, oh, the boys type of thing. But as I've gotten older, the first time I heard about it, there was that resistance. You kind of like, no, because you can imagine white males kind of as like almost the villain in the story, and you kind of have this like, I don't want to be the villain. So there is a little bit of this resistance to it. And I think there still are a lot of men who are, and a lot of my friends who are still at that part of their journey where they've been exposed to it, but not enough. So there's that first, the start of the journey, which is, no, let's try and find a way to argue our way out of this. But I think it's through further awareness, further hearing stories, hearing things, and the penny starts to drop. And then we can start to say, you know what? Because this is the thing. I went to an all-boys school. I hated it. I hated being surrounded by just boys, And in the work environment, I'm sure there's some guys that don't want to be just surrounded by, diversity is good. It is something that we can all benefit from. No one wants to be that minority, that alienation feeling. But if we can have a collective and we have that diversity, I think it's better than just being, imagine like just a majority, So it's almost like we don't want to be the minority, but being a majority is not as good as having that diverse, inclusive arrangement. Of course, it's difficult. It might be something that we almost need the old guard to die out, because old people tend to be very traditional, conservative, and stick with their way. But what's great about, I think, society today and with our generation, and the fact that we have social media where we can have these discussions, can you imagine the past generations didn't really have them. So I'm very optimistic about the future of humanity. I know there's a lot of people, it's like, we're all going to die. Global warming is going to kill us all. But hopefully before global warming does kill us all, we do reach a stage where we're a better species. And I kind of feel like, we're moving in the right direction, sometimes slowly. And like I say, you're in a much better position to be the judge of that. But I do have this optimistic outlook. So I don't know, Cara, is there anything else you want to chat about? I know we do have 10 people left on the call. So while you're thinking about that, let me just quickly see if there are a few more questions. Is there an age limit for starting with Fem Act or studying in the field? I mean, normally, like with actuarial science, there's no upper age limit. I mean, normally, there was that weird Russian person who qualified at 16, but Russians are always the outliers. Normally it's 18, you spend some years at varsity, and then you qualify when you're ready. I remember there was a guy that was writing the exams, fellowship with me. He had gray hair. And it was funny because I wrote the fellowship 3 times because I was not that smart. And he was there all 3 times. But he did, and then he qualified with me. So there's no upper age limit. There are, and if you speak to them at ASA, he'll tell you stories of people who've qualified very, very late on. So that's a nice thing about actuarial science. We don't necessarily have ageism as an issue, which I know that is kind of a bit of an issue in some other things.
But yeah, there's also no age limit or any restrictions to Fem Act. The way we invite people is all women and allies are allowed. So as long as men are definitely allowed to.
Are they?
Yes, definitely, because this conversation can't be had just with women. We're having this conversation with you. We want men to be a part of this discussion. We want them to learn about this, because if you are just spectators on the sideline, how would you know what your contribution can be in this space? We can't expect men to just change the world if we don't give them guidance to. We can't expect them to help us if they don't know how. We don't expect you to know what our experiences are. So we are here and we are willing to speak about them, and hope that you would sit and listen and maybe contribute in the space. Ask a question if you feel like you have a question that's at heart. So the space is open to all. We aren't saying only women. We are saying all women and allies. Obviously not people that would want to bring about hate speech or any negativity. It's a learning space. It's a space for all of us to learn. I'm learning. We are all learning from each other's experiences. So yeah, it's a very inclusive space, and it's a space for us to learn.
I like that. I do see that we do have a question that I want to pass to you. It says, are women that have kids more or less likely to get a job in the industry? And like I said, you've got a lot more experience because you've, I think, worked in these VAC places where I tend to work more in the shadows of my own place. Yeah. So I think you're perfectly poised to answer this question. So
I definitely think that everything is changing. So the corporate world is changing. Women with kids are more catered for today than they were in the past. So I think COVID has also made everything so much easier in terms of how to balance having a child, having a family, and working. So many people that I work with, they either have children, or they are pregnant, or they are looking to have families and start families. So definitely, if you find a space where the culture is acceptable, because at the end of the day, not all corporates are willing or allowing of your schedule. So they don't always allow for you to just run off and, okay, I have an emergency at home. Can I, Whereas the company I'm working at now, Percept, it's entrenched in the culture. It's a good culture. It's focused on your whole being. So they're completely understanding. And I think that's the way that we are moving as society in the corporate world. You'll see a lot of the corporates now are moving towards being more accessible and more friendly for all individuals. And at the end of the day, you need to keep your workers happy. You need to keep your actuaries happy, your employees happy. So yes, I do think that Actuary is a very accommodating field. It can be demanding, obviously, in terms of your studies, trying to balance everything. And we have speakers that are mothers, and they have spoken on these issues and spoken about how they were able to balance their studies, whether they decide to write that exam the next session because they are scheduled to give birth, or if they should sit it out and write the next session. So yes, it definitely is a very accommodating field, as long as you are at a company that has a more transformed culture.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, trying to get to the position where you can try and transform the culture of a company. So I do think that it's a field that is accommodating of women with children.
This was one of the things I liked about actuarial science, was that I would hear stories of people who qualified as being actuaries, and then they would work from 10 to 3. There were these stories of people that, especially if you become a statutory role and you're just signing off on the insurance, yes, it's a high responsibility job, but it's a low stress job, especially in life insurance. You can imagine people die only every now and then. It's like you've got 40 years, you sell a premium, if you made a mistake, you've got 40 years to correct whatever mistake you have. And it was one of the things that I was told by multiple people to stay away from, was investment banking, because that is an industry where you're getting paid based on your commission, or your bonus is very much linked to how much business you bring in. So you're constantly working flat out, trying to get this deal, do the sale, programming this, what's the right interest rate? Oh my gosh, there's an arbitrage opportunity there. And you're doing like 100 million things at once. Whereas as an actuary, you can kind of think, what should be the mortality assumption for the next 5 years? I've got 4 years to decide. Okay, I'm exaggerating, but you can see how I think, and this is what what motivated me to study, to get through actuarial science, was I kind of was like, I'm going to study super, super hard now, get this degree, and then have a more relaxed working environment, compared to maybe having a more fun time at university and then having to work a lot harder. And one thing that I can talk about is my brother's an accountant. And I think I worked harder at university than he did, because he was always going to parties and all that stuff. But he's now a chartered accountant, CA, qualified everything. He's sometimes working like 9 o'clock on a Sunday, trying to finish an audit in time, because there's pressure, there's deadlines, there's these things that really have to come in. And I look at him and I'm like, that's crazy. We both he did his master's in finance. So we kind of both in like the same industry of finance. But I don't know, I've tried to focus very much on that work balance thing. So I sometimes even say, don't work too hard, because you don't want to burn yourself out, rather enjoy life. Because at the end of the day, we're here to enjoy life. We're not here to make money, because it's like, there's that weird biblical proverb with the guy who kept building a bigger barn so they could put more of his grain in, and he kept working, and then he dies. It's a sad story. Like, why is this in the Bible? Why am I being taught at Sunday school? But it's such a good lesson, because life's not just about work. And sometimes this corporate culture can be, it's all about the numbers and stuff. And this is where people can come and say, hey, hold on, let's have time off if someone has a child. And this is where Sweden comes back into play, because they even give maternity leave to the father as well, because they say it's important to have this time with your children, and it's not all about work. I mean, I kind of sound a little bit as an anti-capitalist with this statement, but I almost think, imagine we had a 4-day work week. That's one way to solve unemployment. If people can, if you take away 20% of somebody's working capacity, then you're almost creating 20% more jobs.
And then, especially in South Africa,
with the longer weekend, that means more coffee shops, more other little businesses, because these people don't need to be entertained. I mean, that's how you could solve it. But you can see, that's one thing I do start doing, is when I do get tired, I start talking a little bit on the alternative side. So I see we have gone 1 hour and 15 minutes. I'm going to leave it to you to either close it up or to bring something else up. Like I said, it's you. More than happy to.
I think we're good. I enjoyed the session, and we've covered just about everything in terms of Fem Act, and I hope that everyone will tune in and watch this space. And I hope that Fem Act will grow over the years. So this is obviously the first year that we are here.
Mhm.
And I hope next year we'll be able to continue, grow more, actually have our own social media so that we're not posting through Cara and like it'll be posting via Fem Act. So yeah, the space is open for growth, and hopefully next year we'll have another person taking over, taking reign and building it up. And
Okay.
yeah.
So for now, would you say the best thing for people to do is to find you on LinkedIn, follow you on LinkedIn, and wait for your post? I mean, I'll also post it around my things. But yeah, that's also for someone who really wants to, who's maybe not a subscriber.
Of course.
And if you're not a subscriber, subscribe, people. It's one thing I do. One thing I do see about the YouTube live sessions is like it's like 99% of the people watching are subscribers, whereas with the other videos, it's kind of like sometimes only 10%. So it is an interesting stat. But yeah, I think let's maybe close it off there.
Of course.
Let me maybe just say thank you so much for taking the time on this cold Monday in Cape Town to come all the way here and spread a message, which I really think, yeah, more people need to hear. We need to keep raising awareness. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Like, this is a perfect example of what allyship is, and thank you for opening your platform for something this, I would think, important and a conversation that needs to be had. Yeah. Thank you.
Only happy to help. Perfect. Let's click. I still don't know how to. I think we click this button. End stream. Yeah. You can see I'm still new to this YouTube live. Anyway, thanks everyone.
Bye.
And then let's click end.
That was fun.